Hello, and welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Boland, and I'm a congenital amputee of the right hand. In this show, I will interview other amputees and allow them to tell you their incredible life stories. I'll also feature family members of amputees and others who support the amputee community, all in an effort to discuss the challenges and triumphs of those living with limb loss. So stick around and listen to inspirational stories and find out why we say, We're Not Stumped. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Boland, and today I welcome Britt Kimball. If you live in the Phoenix area, you probably know Britt, and certainly if you're an amputee, because she does so much for the community. But I get the honor today of sharing her story on the podcast so people around the world and certainly around the country can hear it. Britt leads the amputee support group, Valley of the Sun, as well as annual running, swimming, and golfing clinics. We're going to learn a lot more about what she does today. But the first thing I want to do is say, Britt, thank you so much for being on the We're Not Stumped podcast.
Good to see you, Mike.
It's always good to see you. We always start the podcast with a segment I call In Your Own Words. So if you don't mind, let the listeners know a little bit more about you.
Sure. I'm a rare Phoenix native and grew up here and went to college and wanted to do event planning. And I did that for a long time. And I went to Rice University in Houston, started working at the Tempe Arts Festival here, worked for the Restaurant Association's trade show for a while. And then when my kids were little, I was kind of looking back to my favorite job had been lifeguarding. So I worked at a swim school doing their marketing and swimming. The owner really had wanted to be an occupational therapist. And so that when I got divorced, I was kind of like, what's my next step? I decided to go back to school and become an occupational therapist. And here at Encompass Valley of the Sun in Glendale, we used to have a PTA that worked with a lot of amputees, and he started a support group years ago here. And when they asked me which committee to join, I said amputee right away, and I don't think I knew exactly why, but looking back, it's because they were the ones doing all the events. So I think I knew that my other skills would be a good benefit for that.
Yeah, doing all the events that you do. What does it mean from your perspective for amputees to have a support group? Because they're getting into a journey or maybe a lifestyle that they're very unfamiliar with.
Right. Well, so we are just an inpatient facility, but then the group meets here for the support group. And if we have any inpatient new amputees, we bring them to the support group. And it's just almost magical, them getting to see someone up on a prosthetic later in their journey. And it's really means a lot to them. I mean, oftentimes the next day they'll say, Britt, thank you so much for taking me to that group. I feel so much more optimistic now. And I mean, we have one guy, Ken, in the group, and he was inpatient in September, went to our, while he was inpatient, came to the support group, met some of them. October, we went to a fall league baseball game as a group, and he got to say play ball from his wheelchair. And then in December, we had a potluck here, and he walks in on his prosthetic. So it was just wonderful to see that. And he's comes every time. And one of my colleagues just wrote an article for the OT Association on the benefits of support groups. And I mean, Ken was just raving about how much it's meant to him and some of our other amputees.
Well, I know, I think it was at that baseball game because another person that I know, Dan Moses, also threw out the first pitch, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly.
So that is so cool that you're able to do. So this is the benefits of going to the support group. You get to go to a baseball game, throw out a first pitch, all that. But I think it's mostly being able to know that you're not alone in the journey, because that's one of the things that I think most people probably feel right from the get-go. Is that something that you've seen?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's the support group. I mean, we try to alternate like a speaker, like on diabetes or pain management, with something fun like a potluck. But like at least twice we've planned game night, but then someone was like, does this ever get any easier? And we end up talking about that for an hour instead of playing games, or we end up talking to a new inpatient. So, I mean, it really is a support group supporting each other. Some of them they just went kayaking together, so that they're starting to spin off and empowering each other to letting each other know about resources out there. Arizona Disabled Sports is doing things, Ability 360. There's the Arizona Disabled Water Sports, and most of the people in my group try to take advantage of all of those things. So it's great to know about those other resources.
Yeah, I think Arizona has a great ecosystem. I happen to work with some of those organizations that you talked about, and
Yeah.
what a great group of people we have here. From your perspective, though, is there something that is missing from the ecosystem, or is there something? Is there a gap? I guess.
Yeah. I think there are people who maybe like don't get to come for like inpatient rehabilitation, like with us or something like that, and kind of fall through the cracks. I mean, there are some patients who were maybe their, diabetes wasn't uncontrolled or something like that, and they're just not getting the support they need to, become a successful prosthetic user or, return to whatever activities they did before. So I do think I mean, it's hard to say how to fix that gap,
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, if I really hope that most amputees can go to a inpatient rehabilitation because we can set them up for future therapy to keep them getting stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just the most important thing. And you talked already about some of the, was it Ken, some of the success stories that you've seen. Is there any others that come to mind that, maybe that somebody's really turned over a new leaf because
Yeah.
of the support of others?
Yeah, well, I've got one of them who's now like a substance abuse counselor. He hasn't been able to come to meetings because he's working evenings, but I think he was at that same barbecue with Ken as an inpatient and now is back to work full time. I've got another gal who she's AKA and she's working full time as a mechanic, and it's just great to see them getting back to their lives. There's another guy who bilateral and lost part of his fingers, but he's back working full time. So it's really great to see people, living their best lives. Sometimes in the gym, I worry about the patients that don't notice the patient next to them, and like they think, oh, my situation's so bad. But if they don't see the person next to them, might, have less chance of getting back to their lives. But it seems like most amputees really, there's a high chance of success. You can golf, you can run, you can do a lot of these things, with good exercise and a good support system.
Yeah, some of the people that I get the chance to talk to on the podcast, like we call it like the other side. Now, again, being a congenital, I'm a little bit different, but I know that people go through that journey and they question whether they're going to get back. And what I really liked about what you were talking about is everyone getting back to work, because that's an issue that I see within the limb loss community. It's something that I guess I share with people that
Yeah.
have lost limbs. I was born like this. What does that success mean when you see it from afar? What does that mean to the people that are getting back to their lives?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think each person defines success differently. Maybe it is getting back to work. Maybe it is golfing. Maybe it is, just toileting independently. But I mean, our job as therapists, hopefully, is to identify what's important to that person and help them, realize their own goals. They weren't playing the violin before, they're, probably not going to play it afterwards. So we have to um, really customize the goals, customize what we're doing to help them achieve those goals. I mean, and hopefully involving the prosthetist, involving, their support system. So yeah, it's challenging, but you really need to reach out to your support system, use the resources out there. Like you said, I mean, we're lucky to be in a big city with so many support groups. I've put together a list of resources that I give a new amputee of like Facebook groups and foundations that help amputees, even like a list of lotions that a lot of amputees like with their prosthetics. I'll send it to you. And I just added your foundations on there,
Oh, thank you.
and I'll add your podcast to the list of websites.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. In,
Yeah.
in your time, in your away from the amputee support group with your therapy, what are some of the changes that you've seen with prosthetics? Because I can tell you from me, When I
Mhm.
went to the Amputee Coalition event in 2022, I was shocked because I hadn't worn a prosthetic in 40 years. Have you seen
Yeah.
advancements in the last 10 years?
Oh, definitely. I mean, a lot of our people in our group are getting the microprocessor ankles now that can like tell if you're wearing a different shoe and adjust like, okay, you got a thinner shoe on today, or oh, you're walking on gravel, or you're walking on steps and adjust. And then, the upper extremity prosthetics is really where a lot of the technology they're doing those nerve implants where the muscle can trigger a certain movement. So, that's going to be, I think, the next frontier, really.
Yeah, I agree. I went to Camp No Limits and Hanger was there, and they had a myoelectric hand that happened to fit me, and I tried it on. It
Uh-huh.
was like, wow, that's amazing. I actually kind of
Right.
hurt my arm because it obviously wasn't made for me, so I closed it, and I really had problems opening it. But that's how much power those have. That's amazing. I mean, again, I would have never thought of something like that when I was younger. But what is the
We-
role of a caregiver in the journey? Because sometimes I think I don't want to say they're overlooked, but gosh, they're the unsung heroes to a certain extent. How big of a role do you see that being?
it certainly depends on the amputee and what's going on, but initially most amputees can't drive for quite a while, or need to get hand controls or a left foot pedal. So they're the driver. They certainly end up doing a lot of the, errands and higher level kind of things, cleaning the house, doing laundry. And you're right, they are often the unsung hero. At one support group, I guess it was Valentine's Day, so we were kind of writing Valentine's or February, and the current amputees wrote notes to new amputees, kind of, saying, "Hang in there, it's going to be okay." And but we had a couple of the caregivers write notes to the other caregiver saying, you know, uh, same thing. It's tough too, and I believe the Amputee Coalition even has a support group for caregivers, so that it's just so important to use those resources and realize that they've got to take care of themselves as well, and they can't do it all.
Yeah, take care of themselves. That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. And how about from the amputee themselves or the limb loss community, the role of advocacy, especially self-advocacy? How important do you feel that is from your perspective?
Well, it's just so important to be able to express your needs. You really can't have a need fulfilled until you express it, right? So, we especially try to teach amputees or any patient on, explain what you're wanting so that and you might have a new caregiver explain them how to do it, and for them to learn how to verbalize the steps, is empowering and helps them to have those needs satisfied.
Yeah, absolutely. If there is a person, let's say, I don't know, Kansas, I'm just throwing out a location, and maybe they don't have a amputee support group, but they're looking to start their own. What are
Mhm.
some of the tips you could give that you have learned along the way that may help others creating something like that?
Well, the Amputee Coalition does have a group of people that run support groups, and it's like a Zoom meeting like this, and they meet maybe every 3 months, and it's just nice to maybe talk about what topics people might be interested in. Maybe, talk about challenges on how to market the group. So that's a really good resource for getting started. I would reach out just to other people who run support groups in general. I know I'm the gal at I'll email the gal who runs Lively Limbs in the East Valley sometimes, and we kind of let each other know about what events we're both doing, and we get some crossover. Like you came to our bowling, and yeah, so just reach out to people that have done this before. And it doesn't necessarily have to be amputee support groups. We also have a stroke support group here. And there are certainly things like, caregiver training and other things that we might have similar topics. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It doesn't have to be just amputee. On your support group, for people to find you, I know that I saw it. There's a Facebook page. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Is that a good
Right.
way? Certainly Encompass Health. I don't know the URL top of my head. Encompasshealth.com. Am I thinking?
Is our website
Okay.
for the whole company. There's 160 hospitals in the country. We're if you Google Encompass Health Valley of the Sun, and then we have our Valley of the Sun amputee support group, like on Facebook, is probably the best. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very active. I really enjoy it. And you have some events coming up, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, we're
What's it?
doing our golf clinic December 7th at Cave Creek Golf Club here. We've got Ping coming with adaptive clubs. Have you seen the ones where they put the club right into the socket and you just swing your whole, arm if you only, a partial arm, and
Wow,
then just other things for balance.
that's
So
great.
Ability 360 has a little one person golf cart that will stand someone to hit the ball, and they do golf events all around the valley all year. So yeah, there's a lot of great technologies, a lot of great resources.
It's great to see that because it just gets people out. And when I think about the limb loss community and possibly others, I'm glad you brought up other was the first, like I call it the triple A's, and the first A is alone, because sometimes you just feel alone and you're, you against the world. But there are people like you and people like Ability 360, and then great inventions that are helping people get out and do more. And in the
Mm.
theme of that, what are you looking forward to doing as the years go by, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road? What are you looking forward to do in the
Yeah.
future?
Well, our next year's running clinic, we've decided to do it. We've usually partnered with Ability 360. We're going to do it at Ability 360 so we can use their indoor track. That way we have air conditioning, so that'll be nice. Sometimes we do readmissions of a patient once they get their prosthetic, so they could come into inpatient rehabilitation, get intensive therapy to learn how to use the prosthetic. So that's something a lot of people don't know is possible. Other things, Hanger is doing their Empower Fest is going to be in Phoenix next year. So we are very excited about that. I mean,
Oh,
our
nice.
group wants to maybe host a welcome something or, and they're all planning to go and support that. I've never been to the Amputee Coalition Conference. I'd like to go to that sometime. So,
Yeah, I did it one time. I did it in 2022. This year, I guess it was in Georgia, and I was like, it's a little warm, and I'm not used to humidity. And I guess you wouldn't be either. You're from Arizona, so.
right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I just want to thank you for your time and everything that you're doing within the amputee community, and certainly other communities as well. If people want to find you, I know that we already talked about the Facebook page, and
Mhm.
there's this wealth of information. And what a great group of people. Like you said, I was able to go to that bowling event. I didn't bowl, though, because I don't know what kind of bowler is going to come out of me. That's
Oh,
why I was
yeah.
like, maybe it wouldn't be fun. But
Well,
maybe
we're
I'll go
gonna
to
try
the.
that. We're gonna try to do that every June. I mean, you were there, and the two of them had been in bowling leagues before they became prosthetic users, and so this was their first time bowling. So that was really exciting to have them back doing it again.
Oh, it was
So,
neat. I really enjoyed it. Again, what a great group of people. That's what I see whenever I go to a support group, is just a bunch of people that want to help each other. And
mhm.
certainly people like you make it happen. And I can't thank you enough for taking your time to be on the We're Not Stumped podcast, and continued success for you and everything you're doing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That was the We're Not Stumped podcast, hosted by Mike Boland. If you want to be a guest on the program, reach out to Mike at his email address, mike@mikeboland.com. This podcast is produced by One Hand Man Productions. If you are looking to start your podcast, go to onehandmanproductions.com.